Hello, dwellers of the internet, welcome back. Today, I wanted to talk about people's perception of law enforcement, specifically pertaining to my perception and my experiences that I've gone through when I've encountered communication or instances of, clashes, or just, I wouldn't say clashes, but just, meetings with different police and officers and such on different occasions. These encounters that people have are, I would assume, fairly regular throughout your life. You're going to, regardless of the way you live your life, according to statistics, are going to have an encounter with law enforcement at one time or another. And this could range from positive to negative extremes. And people generally seem to have this opinion that it's either going to be one or the other. And, of course, this depends on what kind of community you grew up in. I grew up with, not divorced parents, but parents that weren't together after they had me. They never got married, so split parents, and with shared custody. And they both had two different, both of them and both of their extended families had different ways that they would approach raising a child, and different ways that, by extension, they would treat law enforcement. And these treatments were very different depending on which family I was with. They had a lot of juxtaposed arguments and varied ways of viewing the law as well as law enforcement that you would ever have an encounter with. One family had a lot more respect for law enforcement than the other. One side of my family believed that the law was to be respected above all else, that if you encounter a police officer, you're supposed to thank them for their service. They more so taught the pride and respect sort of aspect of, keeping the people safe in a community. They knew that should be valued, and that you should praise officers for doing so. They knew that it is, not only manners or the proper thing to do, but the right thing to do, to congratulate or to pay respect to these people who were essentially giving their lives to keep the public safe. And that's how they viewed law enforcement. On the other hand, the other side of my family viewed all of these people as people to be feared, people to, when you're driving on the road or you're having a house party, they were people who were going to be antagonistic. If you have a house party with too loud of music, or if you go to a show that has bands playing that are a little bit too loud, you're 9 times out of 10 going to inevitably get the cops called on you because people can't deal with noise for some reason. And I mean, that's understandable. I don't want to sound biased here, but that it's understandable, but people should have a lot more of an understanding for noises that happen at rock shows and such, regardless of where you live. This is just a human activity that you need to get used to. That's people having a rock show at their house or a party is much different than there being domestic abuse at the house, which would be the proper situation in which you should feel the need to call the police or law enforcement. So, people who bitch about house parties and such can go suck a dick. But, basically, for house parties and things like that, and things where the police were called on the family unnecessarily, I can remember from experience and just from different instances that my family taught me not exactly directly. They never said outright, "Oh, you should hate the police," or "You should, fear the police," kind of thing. But these were the lessons I was taking from them as I grew up, because of the instances in which we would encounter law enforcement, which would be during house parties, or uh, during relayed experiences that close members of my family would recite back to me, where they would encounter police, where that word being either unfair to them, or treated them with disrespect, or suspected them unjustifiably. People that were taking a look at. I mean, it might have not even been limited to a physical or racial uh, distinction, but it very much sent the message that they were being singled out from the rest of the public aggressively, which they in turn relayed back to myself and other growing family members that were close to me at the time, brothers and cousins and such. And, myself growing up having these two mixed messages about, what police meant and what it meant to have a security network essentially after you. I had a lot to think about, and I had a lot to consider as far as whether or not I would like police per se, I guess. And of course, I went through phases. Every child and person goes through phases when they're forming their perceptions about these kinds of people, because they represent inherently an ultimate authority, or people who have power over you, or they're not necessarily reinforcing this power abusively, but they could, and they do on many occasions. So more or less what I come to view them as now is people that are paying a service to the community, but who also have the potential to abuse their power, which should be obvious after you've lived a certain amount of years and have learned enough that it's never an open shut case. It depends on a lot of distinguishing factors, a lot of contextual evidence, and a lot of individual based traits as far as your experience is going to go, and your relation of said experiences. And that's how I view law enforcement. I have the utmost respect for them. They are keeping the community safe, but I do not discount the notion that they have the potential, obviously, to be assholes, or to take advantage of people, or to abuse their power and authority, to blackmail, or to get people in certain situations and accuse them of something that they didn't do, or that to or to find them the maximum amount of money that one could be fined for a small offense, or to punish them with the maximum amount of community service hours or jail time for offenses that would, on average, go for a lot lesser of a punishment, just because they happen to be in a certain emotional state that day. They happen to be pissed off for some reason, or they happen to be targeting a specific ethnic group or a specific class of individual. It's highly dependent on so many factors. So, I mean, that sort of makes up the gist of the point I wanted to make. Before I go, I'd like to share some experiences and how I formed this opinion. I have been at both sides of the spectrum as far as the treatment of a person who may or may not be doing something wrong, just because I am a person who likes to walk outside late at night. That is a hobby of mine, if not to specifically go anywhere, to a store, to uh, pick up items for someone or myself or something, not for any specific goal, but I'm just a person who likes to take casual walks during the night and experience the night, because it's, quite a majestic and quiet time depending on where you're at. It can allow for solitude, peace and quiet, time to think, it helps for expanses on meditation and such things if you need that. And ultimately, it shouldn't be too different from the day. The only difference is the sun is down, which is there is less light, which, the implications for less eyesight equaling more danger can be made there, which is why there would be more police activity. But I don't believe that it should be, anyway, too much of a risk for you to take a walk at night, for any kind of circumstantial negative happenstance to occur, whether that be being antagonized by the police or being robbed or what have you. But I've had one experience where I've gone out at night with a friend and we've gone to a store to grab some snacks, not anything alcoholic, not anything not anything remotely illegal, not even cigarettes. We just went for some Monsters and some chips. This was back when I was a teenager. And I had a cop stop me in the middle of the road between the store and the street that I was attempting to reach. It was a parking lot. It was between the store parking lot and the street that would lead to my home. And this cop pulled up behind my friend and I, flashed his lights, activated his siren, the beep beep to alert us to stop. He came up to us and aggressively asked us, "You guys been drinking tonight? You guys been smoking tonight? What the fuck you think you're doing?" He was cursing at us. He was basically just aggressively and assumedly thinking we were doing something illegal, or thinking that we were taking part in some kind of some kind of delinquent activity or some bullshit. To this day, I'm not sure why he acted this way, but he did, and it was irritating. I didn't disrespect the officer. I still came up to him like I was trying to be respectful. My friend kept silent the entire time. I was the speaker for this. I told him we went to the store to get some snacks, and we were heading home now. We had only been gone for about 10 minutes, and I pointed him in the direction of my house. I was trying to give him as much information as possible to ensure, safety and trust. I was being respectful. And this officer still treated us with extreme hostility for some reason. And it, as far as I could tell, it was unfounded. I don't think we were doing anything suspicious, other than walking around at night, which would indicate inherently suspicious activity. So, I'm not sure exactly why, to this day, that he singled us out during that night, but it could have been, he was looking for someone specific and we fit the profile. I'm not sure. He didn't tell us, but he, he stopped us. He aggressively asked these questions. When I was explaining the information as far as, what we were doing and where my home was and whatnot, he cut me off at a certain point, and he says, yeah, shut the fuck up. He tells me, shut the fuck up, and he says, don't bullshit me. So, I'm assuming he had he didn't believe what I was saying. I don't know. Maybe he thought we were a different kind of person, or different kinds of people, because I could imagine there are those people that do bullshit the police, which is why I was being so understandable about the whole situation. But ultimately he left us alone. He went back to his business, and he told us to go home, which is what we were doing, or what I was doing anyway. My friend was coming to my house. So, I mean, all things considered, he wasted about 5 to 8 minutes of our time just talking to us, asking us questions, and told us to do the thing that we were doing anyway. he advised us of a course of action we were automatically already taking, with no prompted reasoning really for it, other than it was nighttime. So that was an interesting encounter. And then on the other hand, I've got two lesser experiences to talk about, where I've been walking around at night on my way to a store to do the same thing, pick up some snacks, and a police officer has approached me, flashed his lights from the back of me, and I realize, okay, I've got to talk to this person and, be professional, so I've got to be cool, talk to the cop. And I calmly approach him. I say, hello, officer. And he asks me about a suspect he's searching for, and he opens up by saying, hey, buddy. I want to emphasize that. He says, hey, buddy, have you seen such and such character description? He is talking about a guy with a red backpack, who had just robbed a store down the street or something. And I was wearing a backpack at the time, so there was reasoning for the questioning of myself, because he might have seen me from a distance wearing this backpack and thought, oh, that could be the suspect, and furthermore, if I was in the area, I could have, I'm obviously a person who is exhibiting evidence to the suspect he's looking for. So, and, I explained to him that I haven't, calmly, respectfully, and so he says, thank you very much, have a good night, and he moves on with his life. So, police experiences can vary, and I guess the ultimate point I was trying to make was that you can't look at it in a black and white perspective, and that you should always try to be understanding, I guess, when it comes to the police. Even if they're dicks, they have a hard job. Peace, guys. See you tomorrow. But also, the police can segregate, profile you, and act like dicks, so fuck 'em.